Vandana, Manisha.
Thank you so much for that. Well, yes, it's been the crude oil prices which have been on radar, and we've seen quite volatility come in for prices. Vandana, when it comes to the knee-jerk reaction that we saw into the markets was 5.5%. We did see $81 on the higher side. It did not sustain there as the markets haven't still seen much happen on ground in sense of supply disruption or export disruption for that matter, would you say?
Yeah, good afternoon, Manisha. So the market is not pushing the panic button. And I think justifiably so, because the keywords that you just mentioned there, what is the actual reality on the ground in terms of supply, production, and flows from the Middle East? Nothing has changed. I would put out another point out there, Manisha, sort of paradoxically. It's just possible that the US strike on Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend, as shocking as it was, and creating a sort of a more nervousness in the markets, it might actually push Iran, have pushed Iran enough into a corner to want to now de-escalate things. And even if you look at the messaging from the White House, and there's been mixed signals, but what I extract from all of that, most importantly, that is, it was a sort of one and done strike from the US, at least for the time being, until perhaps Iran deliberately escalates it. And Trump is looking for peace. So, those are the sort of, that's the scenario that the market is taking into consideration. No disruption in supply, no disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, and Trump very keen to start moving towards peace.
Also, when you talk about Strait of Hormuz, and I mean, that has been a conversation on an everyday basis, Vandana, but Strait of Hormuz is as important to Iran as it is to all other countries, and the way we are looking at that financial distress within Iran as well, would you say it's perhaps a 10 to 30% of a chance that we would actually see something happen at Strait of Hormuz?
No, Manisha, I would put it at less than 2%.
Okay.
Manisha, it reminds me of that saying to, cut one's nose to spite one's face. Iran has very little to gain, if anything, and a lot to lose if it attempts to blockade the strait. Not that it is easy by any stretch of imagination. So there's logistical, tactical issues there. We have seen that the US has increased considerably its firepower in the region, its naval strength in the Arabian Sea. So that, to my mind, acts as a deterrent and also as a ready response should Iran try to blockade. But also, I think strategically, it just doesn't make sense for Iran, Manisha. If it blockades the strait, it is going to stop the flows of its neighboring oil-producing and exporting countries, the vast majority of which, I would say almost all of them, have been quite neutral in this conflict, even sympathetic towards Iran, even protesting against US and Israeli strikes. Why would it want to turn them into enemies? Equally, it risks provoking the ire of China, its single biggest market, and other potential buyers in Asia, who will be stranded if the strait is closed. So for all of those reasons, I see it as a very remote tail risk that it actually proceeds to blockade that waterway.
So, Vandana, you're saying that all this fallout is going to be contained and we may perhaps be looking at a same range-bound move for crude oil prices, even lower?
On the lower part, Manisha, I would say that we need to see the US and Iran getting back to the negotiating table. Now, it doesn't matter how much rhetoric flies between the two, which is harsh towards each other, or how much sort of signals they send to each other. I think the market's not going to react much to that because, let's face it, the whole thing has just become one big drama, and it's really become hard for market participants to extract the signal from that noise. But if we do see some concrete steps towards them starting to re-engage and resume their nuclear negotiations, I think we would see quite a bit of erosion in the, I would say, $12 to $14 premium right now because of the escalation. We would see quite a bit of erosion. For all of that premium to disappear, I think we'll probably need to see something much more concrete. And I think herein lies perhaps more of an issue in terms of the hurdles for them to see eye to eye. Iran's ability to enrich uranium at all, no matter like which purity level, I think that's become a big red line for both the sides. US doesn't want Iran to enrich at all, and Iran says it wants to continue to be able to do that. So it's at this point, Manisha, it's hard to see how they'll get over that hurdle. So I wouldn't count on a swift and enduring peace and complete disappearance of the risk premium, but I think it should start easing very soon.
And then also looking at the kind of supplies that we have, and that clearly is an underlying, very important fundamental, the reason that you haven't seen the crude prices run up. How are you working with supplies and demand in the global markets for this year now?
Yeah, so I think that's quite a bearish picture. And I think if we didn't have that sort of narrative out there, which has been with us since the start of this year and extends not just to the end of this year, but into 2026, that we are in a well-supplied market, enough supplies, enough additional supplies coming at an accelerated pace from OPEC+, demand seen not looking too good because the assumption is that the tariff wars are quite a headwind for the global economy. So it's not looking too good. And then we have plenty of spare capacity within the OPEC Plus alliance as well. So all of those factors are probably not just weighing on the one of the reasons why we haven't seen bigger, sharper jumps in crude, but also every time you see Brent jumping, and as a knee-jerk reaction, we saw that when the Israel-Iran conflict started, we saw again this morning. One of the reasons it pulls back very fast, I think, is also there are plenty of players out there who are essentially still quite bearish and very happy to sell if it hits $78, $79.
Okay, all right, Vandana, as well as Manisha. Well, definitely a developing story, but thanks very much for joining in and taking us through what could probably potentially happen to crude prices. And maybe the limited reaction that we're seeing on equities is the hope that maybe Iran will not have too much of an aggressive reaction and probably doesn't even have the firepower to do so at this point in time. That's probably the assumption at this point. We'll